Hey, everybody, I'm Candid Frank. That's Marc Sagan. If I do this another time with Marc, a third time, I'm going to have to include his name on the opening. I'll have to go through the trouble of doing that.
Put me on
Marc,
the payroll.
welcome. And put him on the payroll. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm a Montreal fan on the payroll. My Leaf fan that I work with might not be too happy about that, but the Leafs are irrelevant other than Marner. So, well, here we are. The Stanley Cup playoffs are underway. We've talked before, and I'll start by saying this. As a Montreal fan, you didn't go into the season thinking that you would be this deep into the playoffs, and less than that, vying for the Stanley Cup. But you knew this team was going to be very, very much improved.
Well, we knew that the rebuild was going on. Like we knew, like we might have been a little bit ahead of the rebuild, but we didn't think we were this far ahead of the rebuild. Because we expected to make the playoffs, and we like my prediction was at the beginning of the season was we would make the playoffs, and we would possibly win the first round, but not get through the second round because my thoughts were that the rebuild's not there yet. We're not at 100% on the rebuild. We're about 90% there, and we're missing a couple pieces. And I think Game 6 against Buffalo was a perfect example of there's something missing in Montreal. But there's no way in hell that anybody thought that we'd be in the Eastern Conference final against Carolina. So this shows that the rebuild is working. We're ahead of the rebuild. Did we get lucky? Yes. Did we get a goalie that got really hot and stole a couple games? Yes. But that's something you're expecting in the Stanley Cup playoffs, is you expect your goaltender to steal you at least 1 or 2 games per series, and he has. Game 7, both Game 7s. You could see that Montreal wouldn't have moved on without Dobej in net. So, if Montreal moves on to the finals, the Stanley Cup finals, Dobej has got to be a sure win for the Conn Smythe.
Opportunities sometimes seem endless, and not to. Well, I'll throw cold water on what you're saying in this way. Teams get to this point every year. Some of them are young, some of them are experienced.
Mm-hmm.
The young ones, the thing that one has to be careful about, and I mean by the organization and maybe the expectations of the fans. It seems easy to get to the Stanley Cup final when you're there. You're saying, wow, this was easy when you're young, right? And you look ahead and you go, hey, son of a gun, we can do this again next year, the year after that. And there are a lot of players who were in the Stanley Cup final in their first season and then haven't been back for 12 years. My point being that this rebuild, and I think Montreal's prepared for this, and they have a management team that understands it. They cannot assume that they'll be back next year. They've got to, boots to the wall. They've got to do whatever they can to win this time. I'm not disagreeing with you that there's a build going on, but what I am saying is that there are other factors other than what Montreal's doing that will either allow Montreal to make it to a Stanley Cup final again. So what wasn't learned by the Maple Leafs and them, as you know, we do the Leafs show here. What wasn't learned by them is the opportunities aren't endless. And sometimes the solution has to be a little more accurate than hopeful. So they hoped by making some changes with a couple of people at the end of the year that would put them over the top. We've learned from the Montreal experience, you got to go in with the right guys before that. You have to have the right guys. And you're speaking to the point that you're not saying that this team can't do it, but you're saying that there are openings in your mind that Montreal needs to take care of. So highlight for me what's missing this year that you think would make it easier this year to win if they had made those changes. What are they?
I think you just need a little bit more grit up front. I mean, the D is, there might be one defensive, one D man missing because we're generally playing with 5D because when you're playing Jack Guy and Struble, those guys are getting minimum minutes. I think Struble got 14 minutes last night, but generally Jack Guy is on there for less than 5 minutes. So you're playing with 5D. So to get a sixth defenseman that you could rely on as a sixth defenseman to play, 14, 15, 18 minutes a game, that's the piece they're missing down in the back. And in the front, well, they're missing somebody to get into, like, they're missing somebody on the first line to get into the nitty gritty. We thought Slavkovsky was going to be that guy because, I mean, what is he, 6'5", 210? Um, but he's just not that guy. So your line one, however productive it is, you don't have a guy that wins battles in corners because Suzuki's not the biggest guy and he's not the meanest guy. Caulfield doesn't even go into the corners because he knows he's just going to get creamed and not win those battles. So it's up to Slavkovsky to get in there in those corners and win those battles, and he doesn't. And he started doing it after the Olympics because he was a force to be reckoned with in the Olympics, and then afterwards in Montreal he was playing great. But I think ever since what was it, game two in that fight against Hagel, when he got a good punch in the mouth there, he hasn't been playing the same. It's almost like he's afraid to get into the corners. He's afraid to grind things up, and you just can't have that in the playoffs because it's a grinding, nitty gritty kind of game. So you need a guy like Anderson with possibly a little more skill than Anderson to get up on the top line. That being said, top line last night was well, they got engaged and they got several points and goals, but um, uh, we wouldn't have got here without the bottom six, and the bottom six is really who's been the top performers for Montreal in the past 15 games because unlike most teams, bottom six guys are just players that are there to give the top two lines a rest. But the bottom two lines for Montreal have been the producers. They've been scoring. They've been getting a lot of chances, and they've been putting it in net. So when you got that depth kind of scoring in Montreal, the depth is not a problem in Montreal. I think there's just something missing on line one that makes them, like, they're a great regular season line. I think there's a problem for playoffs kind of line when it gets a lot more physical and a lot more, in your face kind of, in your hits. So
What
Koski's an
what
example of that. Yeah.
when you speak to the toughness part, I agree with you, but I also have to say that Jack Eye's on the bench for that reason in the event, and he's come off the bench at times when the coach felt that maybe there needs to be a bit of a message
Yeah.
sent or a response, right? So he goes in. Unfortunately, he went in there and offered that response, and it got them a penalty that was dangerous in the series
Yeah.
against Buffalo. So I believe you're right that there's in the playoffs. Anybody who doesn't think toughness is a big thing in the playoffs really has not watched hockey.
No.
If there were a player in Montreal's past that I think they can use, and a guy that would be a big difference, and it would turn Montreal not from a team contending for the cup, but dominating, and that would be the guy that I see in my mind's eye when you talk about that forward, that guy that could play the kind of playoff hockey. I think of Bob Gainey, a guy that didn't get credit being a superstar during the season, but when the playoffs rolled around, we always
Mhm.
knew that he would keep the other team honest.
Yeah.
And really, that's what I think that's who you're talking about, that kind of player.
Yeah, we need that
That
kind of
dominant.
player. And the problem with Jack Eye, well, the thing with Jack Eye is the Montreal has, it's a fact that they play better when he's in the lineup, even if he's not playing a lot of minutes. Montreal always plays better when Jack Eye is in the lineup because it's kind of that security blanket. It keeps the other team in check. When Jack Eye's not on the bench, last night wasn't the case because Carolina's not that
Kind of team.
chippy kind of a team, but especially against a team like Tampa Bay, where it was very physical and there was a lot of scrums and there was a lot of face washing and stuff like that. When Jack Eye's in the lineup, Montreal always played better because they knew that he would keep Tampa Bay in check. And if anybody got out of line or anybody took cheap shots on the superstars, well, on comes Jack Eye with the head hunting. And the players, they love that kind of security blanket, especially guys like Caulfield, because he knows that, all right, Jack Eye's on the bench. Nobody's going to mess with me because if they do, they're going to have to deal with my buddy Jack Eye over there. So,
The saying is that certain players like Jack Eye affords the opportunity for Montreal players to play an inch or two taller,
yeah. Yeah, it's
right?
exactly
So
what it is.
it,
Yeah.
they make them do that.
Yeah.
In the game against Carolina, the I guess if we were to pre-scout as fans, we knew that Carolina was the kind of team that loves pace, and they're on you all the time. They're doggedly chasing the puck, and the question was, Could Montreal get past that dogged checking and that aggressiveness? They proved they could last night. And I think the biggest thing that Montreal proved last night is they can be opportunistic. The opportunities they had were good opportunities, but they were nip and tuck as far as shots were concerned. But they executed the final part of the plays, which is the shooting. They were really good last night. The accuracy and the intention to score and keeping their eye on that. Previously against Buffalo, they made that extra pass. They weren't doing that last night.
Well, I said it all year. Montreal is very good at taking opportunities from mistakes. If you make a mistake, Montreal's right there to pounce on them, and they've got the speed to actually capitalize on those mistakes and get away from the mistake you just made, and then get up there and score. Last night, with several of those breakaways, was a perfect opportunity. That you make a mistake, and we could get that puck and then have a little bit of space, they'll be out there. But the thing with Carolina last night, it wasn't very much of a physical game. And the way to shut down a team like Montreal that's really, really fast, I'm not going to let out the secret here. I hope Carolina is not listening. But if it's to be physical, like Tampa Bay was. Tampa Bay pretty much shut down line one because they were just not given many time and space. They were finishing their checks. And so Montreal the first line was pretty much ineffective. The bigger guys in the second, third, and fourth line were more productive because they were able to handle the physical play. I didn't see a lot of hitting last night against Carolina. They were trying to battle on speed, and Montreal's a much younger, faster team. So that's what the problem was with Carolina yesterday, especially in the first period, is that they went in there thinking that, okay, well, we've won 8 in a row and we haven't really had much adversity, and we've been the faster team. So, why shouldn't we play any different? Well, guess what? Montreal is a fast young team. And here's a fun fact. Montreal's average age is 25.8. That's the age for the average age on the team, 25.8. The other team that was an average age of 25.8 was the 1993 Montreal Canadiens.
Absolutely. Historically, the Montreal Canadiens have a deep history on being successful. Obviously, this show that we do is it's basically Maple Leaf talk, because we talk about everything Maple Leaf, not just the Maple Leafs, but everything that has to do with Canada, Canadian NHL teams. Even if the players are not all Canadian, the team is in Canada.
Right.
And right now, there's a lot of talk about the Montreal Canadiens and their supporters. There's no question. The TV screen, the screens that you're watching, anything that has to do with this playoff series and Montreal and the hosts, I'll call the Montreal Canadiens, is amazing, the support that they get. And I think what some people are surprised about, I don't know, are you surprised that across the country there's a lot more support for Montreal than one might have expected? Because a lot of times, the Canadian NHL teams look at each other, like when I say, for example, Toronto and Montreal, Toronto and Ottawa, Calgary and Edmonton, that kind of stuff. There's that, no, I'd rather somebody else win than you. Are you surprised at the support the Canadians have been getting?
I'm not surprised, because they're the only Canadian team left. If Edmonton was still in the mix, if Edmonton was playing in the Western Conference Finals right now, then that would be shared. You'd have half the team, half the country going with the Oilers, and the other half coming to Montreal. But now Oilers are knocked out, so Montreal's the only team left. Yeah, so it's only natural, I guess, for if we want the Cup to come back to Canada, whether you're a Leafs fan or whether you're an Oilers fan, if you really want that Cup to come back north of the border, you got no choice to cheer for the Montreal Canadiens.
I just think there's a segment of fandom, just like if Toronto was the last team in. There's a segment of Montreal fans that wouldn't be able to stomach the idea that the Leafs win the Cup. I just
obviously, and that might be in. It might be in that thing. Whereas, I might not stomach it, but I'll support it because they're still a Canadian team. But yeah, no, right now there's no other choice for Montreal. And I've actually seen 2 hardcore Toronto Leafs fans actually turn and put on a Montreal Canadiens jersey so far. So I've
well,
2
if I count as one, I would be 3. I borrowed a friend's jersey and took.
There you go. So that's 3.
Yeah. So yeah, and there's another thing too. Like I want to ask you about Newhook. Now, the Montreal Canadiens at the time paid a pretty steep price for him to Colorado, a first and a second round pick.
Yeah.
You know, the Leafs have done that. Other teams have done it. It's risky, right? Because a first round pick is one thing, but a first round and a second round, that's pretty interesting. So I guess the fact that he closed out 2 7-game series shouldn't be surprised to management with Montreal. But how do you feel about him and his production, and also the fact that he's a Newfie, and a lot of Newfies now are Montreal fans who were Leaf fans? That's
Well,
another segment of
there is
the.
and there isn't. I've been in the Maritimes quite a bit, and I think it's pretty much split between Montreal and Toronto. I know a lot of Maritimers, especially down in Halifax, that are Montreal fans and will never be Toronto fans. But the thing about Newhook is that he's one of those players where in the regular season, he's kind of an okay player. Like he hasn't been a super performance kind of player in the regular season. He's just one of those guys that's built for playoffs. And I think he's the only one on the team right now with a Stanley Cup, and I'm sure he wants another one. So he's one of those guys like Anderson, right? So Anderson and Danault, those are guys that are playoff type players that you're looking for on a team. Regular season, you never hear about these guys. Danault, I think he went 43 games before he got his first goal. So I mean, he's just one of those guys that's like, yeah, he's your depth, but for some reason, guys like him and Anderson and Danault, they just shine in the playoffs, and that's exactly when you need them to shine. And because I could just think of Anderson in the 2021 series when for our cup to run for the cup, Anderson was a major factor with several amazing goals that got us to where we were. So yeah, listen, Newfies. I've never met a Newfie I didn't like to drink with, and so and I knew a lot in the military, and so they're going to get behind the Newhook because yeah, it's just a hometown
He's one of
kid.
them.
Yeah, he's one of them. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. He's definitely. I bet you there's watch parties going on all over Newfoundland whenever Montreal's on the ice.
He's one of the guys at the Bay. Yep, he's one of those guys. Talking about the opposition and looking at Carolina, what surprised you? I mean, we're talking about one game, right? It's just been one game. You got to win 4, and you got to win 16 to win the cup. But still, what surprised you that was missing from Carolina that you expected more from them?
I think, well, I don't think there's anything missing. I just think they weren't prepared. I think it's the rest and rust factor was definitely an issue in there. Like they went 12 days, 11 or 12 days without playing a game. And when you're in the playoffs, that's momentum lost. That I could understand maybe 4 days you're waiting for a team to come in, and then you end up playing your third series. But they went to almost 2 weeks. That almost feels like you're not even in the playoffs anymore. You're completely out of the loop. You end up with practices, sure, and you do little scrimmages and all that, but you don't feel like you're in the playoffs anymore. That was a long enough time that they could have went an all-inclusive vacation down south for 8 days and come back, and they would still be where they are. I think they just came in rusty. And I took a period to get the rust out because the second period they were really good. They came out running. But the first period just caught them on their heels. They got the first goal thinking, yeah, okay, this is momentum, and we got it all right. But they just forgot like who they're playing. They're playing with a team that just finished closing out 2 really good teams. And this is how I explained it on my show. The Montreal came into Series 3 having knocked out like the 2 top people in their division. Like they went out and knocked out Buffalo and Tampa Bay, which were here in their division. Carolina did the opposite. They were up here and they knocked out 2 lesser teams. I mean, we're talking about Philly and Pittsburgh here, right? They're knocked out 2 lesser teams. So, not Pittsburgh. They knocked out Philly and was it Pittsburgh? I forget who they probably knocked out the first round. But anyways, they knocked out 2 lesser teams. So they didn't play a caliber team like Montreal did in the first 2 rounds. So when they came in here and they were like, oh my God, okay, so we just got dobejed like the other 2 series they got. I think they caught them off guard. So they had a much better second and they had a better third period. But the first period was really like, yeah, you could tell the rust was very evident.
Yeah, and I gotta say that I think with Carolina, What I expect from them is the tenacity, and tenacity means that you're working harder than the other team.
Yeah.
And without them working harder than Montreal, that tips the scales a little bit in Montreal's advantage if they can work as hard as Carolina, because I think that's their stock and trade. And the other thing is there's always that battle that goes on at opposite ends of the rink, right? The goaltenders.
Yeah.
Dobesh was more consistent, and it looked like not necessarily not necessarily a fact, but it looked like Anderson wasn't as good last night as Dobish was, and I think he was the difference. If he would have played a little better, that game would have been a little closer, and might have gone the other way. Maybe the rust in Anderson was a problem there as well, because he wasn't 12 days without being involved in some high pressure goaltending, right? Because we talk all the time. As fans, we always notice how you'll see a team that's getting outshot 17-2, and the score is 2-0 for the team that's being outshot.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the goaltender needs to be active. He needs to feel the puck. He needs to be in the game.
Yeah, it was a perfect example of that. It's Montreal against Tampa Bay with the 9 shots all game, and then they end up winning. But yeah, no, Anderson was I don't think he was that off. I think he just ended up meeting guys like, you're getting breakaways by guys like Demidov. Like, come on, any NHL goalie in the NHL is going to turn around and go, "Holy crap! It's Demidov coming down, or it's Caulfield coming down on me." And you're not getting, well, Deno did get one in there, but you're not getting breakaways from regular players. You're getting the top superstars coming in on breakaways. And they were all great goals. There was no fluky goals. There was no ricochets or bounces, so that no, they were all very nice. I'm thinking of the goal with Slavkovsky. The first goal he had was just a tremendous goal. That's it's a highlight reel goal right there. It'd be hard for any goalie to stop those plays. So I don't think Anderson played that badly. I just don't think he was ready for the snipers that Montreal has, that Philadelphia didn't have. Then the two Ottawa. Sorry, it was Ottawa that they knocked out. Not was in Pittsburgh. Ottawa and Philadelphia knocked out. They didn't have those players, because if you remember, Ottawa, Kachuk didn't score at all in that series. He was not even on the board. So he didn't face any major shooters like Montreal had. Montreal's got the second highest shooter scorer in the NHL right now with Caulfield, so he's always a factor, and he didn't face that in his first 2 rounds. So I think that's what happened. And listen, Montreal as before the series started, Montreal was 5 out of 6 meetings with them were victories for Montreal, and this year Montreal won all 3 games in the regular season against Carolina. So they have Carolina's number, and they won against Carolina in the regular season 3-0 with goaltending that was not that great. I mean, we remember earlier in the season, Montreal's goaltenders, they were questionable, and they won against that. So imagine now they're playing against a Montreal team that has the goaltending, that has a fantastic goaltender, and he's on a run. So I wasn't expecting Carolina to go out and sweep. I know everybody is choosing Carolina to win in like 5 or 6. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Montreal, if Montreal plays like they did last night, this is Montreal in 4.
I don't know that I don't know if I can agree with that, but what I can say as far as Carolina is concerned, historically they've done really well, and I do think Anderson can bounce back and have the kind of game that shuts the door. But I do think the thing about Montreal is that Montreal has had the opportunity to develop, experience. The team will play better more and more quickly because of the inexperience they have on the team. Experience to them, it's a curve, right? And they're on that curve, and they're getting all the early stuff that you learn, right? They're getting it all, and the improvement is most of that improvement happens at the beginning, and then they start to level off, and the improvement lessens as time goes on because they've developed the foundation. So this is the interesting thing for me about watching Montreal, is to see how this young team And I think the coaches said it as well, right? When he said at the 7th game in the first series, when he said, this is important that we play this game because this is going to be a good learning experience for us. And then when it happened again, he didn't have to say that anymore because, again, learning experience. And the other thing is winning breeds winning. Just like losing breeds losing, winning breeds winning. So the Montreal Canadiens are learning how to win. Like I said at the beginning of the program, they can't lean on this being just the beginning of trips to the Stanley Cup. Every season has to be the one that you're going to do it, regardless of where you think you stand. And the organizations, the teams, the players that understand that and give everything they got, and knowing that there is no tomorrow. This is it. Today's the day. This is the day we got to do it. If Montreal keeps that in mind, they haven't lost at this point ever. Carolina has been in this position. They've had some lack of success at this point. So, they have a history and a memory of not being successful. Montreal is ignorant by experience to losing. They don't know what it's like.
No, I wouldn't say they're that ignorant to losing. Remember, Montreal was in the Stanley Cup Finals only 5 years ago, and at least 6 players on that team were on that team. You're looking at Caulfield, Suzuki, Evans, Danault, Anderson. These are all players that were there 5 years ago in the Cup Finals. So, and then you got Newhook, who's got a cup. So you're looking at several players on the team who have that.
I meant
experience.
As a group, though. But
yeah,
you're right.
As a
Individually,
group,
yes, a small group, of course.
Yeah.
They have one Stanley Cup winner, and as you said yourself, Carolina, I don't think they don't have any. None of them were around when they won. Oh, maybe one of the brothers was. They might have one guy on the team that won a cup.
Yeah, well, Carolina's got the experience right now of getting knocked out in the 3rd round. That's what they know.
That's what I'm saying.
And they've never won. And I think I read this stat. They're 0-7 on the first game of a 3rd round.
Well, there you go. That is history repeating itself, which is all I'm trying to say, is that sometimes experience is good because you gain on good experience, but bad experience, I think we saw it with the Maple Leafs. They learned how to lose and they became experts at it.
It just became a culture, became a losing culture.
So it's important. My whole point was that you can win the cup not based on a lot of experience, is my point.
Absolutely.
And that's what Montreal has to lean into. Now, Carolina, what they have to do is they have to flush that game and now think about, come up with their counter plan to what happened in that game and see if they can figure out how to beat Montreal. And it's going to be the next game is going to be really interesting because to your point, when you said Montreal could win 4 straight, the next game could set that up. If Carolina loses that game, it starts getting perilous.
If Carolina loses the 2 at home, they're in big trouble, because you're going back to the Bell Center. Montreal's got to have the home ice advantage, and you're going to have to contend with that crowd. Although Montreal has a better record on the road, it's going to be.
They do have issues at home.
Yeah, they do have issues at home. I think it's because of the crowd. Because like it or not, it's the pressure of the crowd, because you're there in front of your own fans and you got the pressure to perform. But if Montreal plays like they played in the first period last night, and if they keep playing, and the third period, because they played great in the third, if they keep that up, like I said, there's no doubt Montreal's going to win this series. Maybe not in 4, but they're going to win this series. Carolina is going to have to really step up their game and speed up to win this stuff. And they're going to have to beat Dobesh. Dobesh is one of those guys, like I swear to God, he's going to steal. He's going to do the same thing as he did in the other 2 series. He's going to steal at least one game where Montreal's not playing very well and they're outshot like crazy, and he's going to steal a game, and that's going to be the difference maker for Montreal.
Let's drill down on Dobesh and his aggressive fighting style. He really likes to go after the opposition.
Well, he's young. He's young and he's emotional, and he's even said it himself. He's a very emotional guy. I mean, he cried after losing a regular season game at the beginning of the season. I mean, that's, if you're talking about putting your heart into every single game. And I think he started the season with 6 straight wins. And then, so that does a lot for a goalie's confidence when you still start. And then I think that it was the next one after that, and he lost, that he started crying. It's just one of those things. Like, I think he's one of those players What is he, 24? He's one of those players that he's young. He's very happy to be there. He's very grateful for being there. He knows the situation. He wants to take advantage of it. And I mean, how could you not? If I was 24 playing for the Montreal Canadiens, I would be just as emotional because it's a dream come true. Like you're like you join a team like Toronto or Montreal when you're 24 and you're playing with a team that's fun like Montreal is right now. Man, how could you not get emotional? Like, how could you not? Like, the team looks like they're having fun. Like, every single game, they look like they're having fun. They look like a good young bunch of kids having a whole lot of fun, enjoying playing a game, getting paid millions to do it. And you got to remember, Dobej is still on an entry level contract. This guy's a rookie. So, I mean, yeah, he's going to have some emotional issues. He hasn't been conditioned for the press yet.
Actually, I think he's done pretty good in that regard.
Well, so far, yes. In the second half of the season,
he's had some interesting interviews that the interviewers have been lauding and saying has been very good. So the Stanley Cup playoffs continue. Montreal playing Game 2 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or today. I think we're recording this, so it'll probably be on today. So later today, the Montreal Canadiens will be playing. What do you want to see from Montreal when that first whistle goes and the first drop of the puck?
I want to see more speed and aggressive like they did in game one, in the first period. I'm looking for them to show their speed, show their skill, dodge the hits, and finish their checks. I was screaming last night, like guys would just not finish their checks. And I was like, it's got to be a physical game. And like I said, just Montreal has more talent on that team. Got to use it. And the big thing going into this series, a lot of people were saying that Carolina was the better team and Montreal's the underdog. Well, the only reason they're saying that's because the first line hadn't ignited yet. Well, guess what? Last night the first line had three goals, I think it was. Well, that's igniting the first line. So if Montreal's first line could wake up, you're in trouble. Like there's no team that's going to win if Montreal's first line is scoring 3 goals a game, and with the depth that we've had so far.
In the playoffs, what for Carolina to win, they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to shut down Montreal's first line.
They have to shut down first line.
Yeah. It's not unusual at all to see in the playoffs. We see it all over the playoffs where the top lines are not succeeding, as well as they do during the regular season. And here's why: in the playoffs, you're playing against teams that made the playoffs. You're playing against teams now that are getting to apply the defense they've learned during the season. And also those teams that are in the playoffs that have a great checking line, like Montreal has, right, can limit the other teams. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's important. It's important to accept the fact that your first line is not going to do that well. So that's when the second line, the third line, and the fourth line have to make a contribution. And that's why guys like Newhook become important in the playoffs, because they do have the ability to score under tough circumstances.
Yep.
And the best thing I can say about players like Newhook is that they take shots that for some reason even the best players aren't doing. Like the goal that he scored to win overtime in the last game. That was a shot that you might say, well, he was just shooting for the heck of it. No, he timed it perfect where his player and the defenseman got in the way of the goaltender seeing that shot.
But that's the thing is that goal is 99% of the time a goalie will stop that puck because it wasn't that hard of a shot. It was a little bit of a tumbler, but most of the time, 99% of the times a goalie will stop that puck. I don't know what happened that he missed that puck, but it wasn't even a fast shot. It was just like a knuckleball. I think it just caught him off guard. And when you're playing overtime, like I'm not surprised he shot because I was screaming at him to shoot. When you're playing overtime, it's everything to the net, like because goals like that will go in. Yeah, 99% of the times they will stop. But if you pummel a goalie enough with shot after shot after shot in overtime, one of them is going to go in. You're not necessarily always looking for that highlight reel goal in overtime. You're just looking for one to get in. And if it's an ugly, sloppy goal, so be it. It doesn't matter. The scorecard will still show that you won the game.
Rebounds matter. And that was a shot that if it didn't go in would have been a rebound. And goodness knows what could happen after that, right? Once the goalie's down, it bounces off his pads.
Right.
Especially in a situation where he doesn't really see it coming. So even if he had made the save, he wouldn't probably have the ability to control the puck, and then it ends up going somewhere that maybe is dangerous. So shoot the puck. We hear it all the time. When I go to bars and watch hockey games, I always hear somebody yelling, "Shoot the puck!" And
because when it's a next goal win situation, then you have to shoot. Like it's not a next pass wins, it's a next shot wins, next goal wins. You got to shoot the puck. You got to give yourself those chances.
Yeah, and looking for opportunities, that's the key. And that was Newhook, very intelligent move. That was not when people say it was an accident or luck. I say no, because it's no coincidence that both the players, the offensive player and the defensive player, were crossing paths, and the puck went through the crossing paths of the two players, and the goalie didn't have a chance.
Yeah,
great goal by Newhook. Value, a first and a second round can prove fruitful for a team. Montreal showed it with him, and bringing him from a Stanley Cup champion on a team that had a lot of centers that were really good, where he was playing down the lineup where he doesn't, in Montreal. So good for Montreal in the win. Congratulations on the victory. Try to hold on to as much hair as you can while you watch the games. I wish you a lot of luck. Enjoy the games. And Mark and I are in the Legion. He's one of my Legion buddies, and we opened the Legion to watch the game last night, and it was interesting. It was fun. And
we'll do it again on Saturday.
So there you go. So don't forget. All right, he's Marc Seguin. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi. Thank you for watching Leaf Talk, and we hope to see you next time when we do another show. Aaron's in Montreal at the Grand Prix, so that's why he has been unable the last couple of days to do a show.
Lucky him. Jealous.
Yeah, thank you, Marc, for coming in and stepping in.
Thank you for having me.
Keep the thing going. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the weekend. It looks really nice. Enjoy the games. They look like fun.